My name is Melissa Campbell. I'm a community activator with the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues. At a recent Community Champions meeting, I shared some information about asset-based community development, or ABCD. This is a really powerful tool for shifting the way we think about the work we do with community leagues and how we can build more connection and belonging in our neighborhoods. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us at leaguesupport@efcl.org. Okay, so who has heard of ABCD? A lot of people, that's fantastic. Okay, that's great. So if you look at your handout, I think this image on the front is a really good summary of what ABCD is about. So if you look at the first little diagram of what they call the consumer-centered world, the idea is the little guy at the bottom is the consumer. So you can think of this in sort of capitalistic terms, like consumer of goods, that kind of thing. But also there's a sense that he's there and services and things are kind of funneled down into him from above. So the little bubbles that are coming down to him are like business, government, nonprofits. So basically he's sitting there kind of waiting for things to be done for him, services to be provided for him. And that's kind of how we've set up our systems in our society. In contrast, if you look at the people-centered world, as they call it, there's this table, and the legs are the systems that sort of prop up the table, but they aren't the table itself. So the legs are government, business, nonprofits that support the work that's happening on the top of the table. And it's the perfect demonstration of what community leagues are, because I think they're the perfect example of a tabletop, and that's where the party's happening. Like that's where all the good stuff is happening, is on the surface of the table. And the people are on top of it, and you can see the little dude in the middle who's holding the gift. That represents this idea of being asset-based. So everybody in your community has gifts to share, and that's where you start. That's the focus. So rather than a bunch of people kind of asking for things of the government, asking of things of agencies, businesses, the idea is that everything you need is in your community already, and the job of the community league is to tap into that. So it doesn't mean that we're not also getting resources, right? Like it doesn't mean the city doesn't also need to provide us with funding and services and things like that, but it flips things so that we're not just sitting around waiting for these things to be done for us. We're taking control of our own destinies collaboratively together. So a couple of really core principles of ABCD is this idea of being asset-based. So you're starting with the gifts that you have. You're starting with what exists in your community already. And then the other piece of it is this idea that it's up to us. Like it's up to us to do what we want and what we need in our community. And that when we get together to do it, it's so much easier and more fun and works much better when we tap into all of the assets that we already have existing in our community. So if you, on the second page, it has a little chart that's kind of looking at when you approach things from a deficit-based perspective as opposed to asset-based. So when you come from a deficit-based perspective, which is what we tend to do, you look at what's the problem, and then you go from there. So we have this problem. How do we get money to fix it? Or how do we find a program to fix it? Whereas if we start with the asset, which is what are the interests and the needs and the gifts that we have in the community and what can we do with that? We actually incidentally fix those problems, but we're doing it from this asset-based perspective instead of starting with the problem. It's almost like when you're driving down the road, you know, like if you see if there's something on the road and if you look at it, even if you're trying to avoid it, if you look at it, then you're gonna hit it. It's the same kind of thing. So if you focus on the problem, then that becomes your focus. That's where all of your energy is going to, is towards the problem rather than all of the potential that surrounds the problem. So those are just some of the basic principles of ABCD. There's more in this handout that you can look at. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. But I think even like the ESCL, our role is we're one of the legs of the table. Like, we're not here to do things for you, we're here to prop up the things that you have all of the capacity to do yourself. And I think that goes for all organizations and, you know, bodies of government as well, that if we work together, all the amazing cool stuff can happen on the top of the table. So this handout is yours to take. Feel free to check it out. And also, I got this from the Tamarack Institute. It has a lot of other great resources around ABCD, so you can check that out as well if you want to look into that website.
Awesome.
All right.